Okay, everybody, we made it. I can't believe it. Hi, my name's Paul.
Oh, good evening. This is Bev.
And nope, it's not Monday morning. It's the fourth Thursday of the month, and we have our workshop, our health condition workshop, and we have a wonderful one today. Not a wonderful topic, childhood and adolescent isolation. But we want to introduce you to our guest speaker today, so we'll put him on right here, Gary De Rodriguez.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Bev. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So he is in Santa Fe. Yeah, you
I'm
look
in
like
Santa
a
Fe tonight. Yeah.
Santa Fe. You look like the scenery around you, the knotty pine cabin you're in.
I'm
So
in this 100-year-old adobe house that I bought, and
Oh,
it's just kind of a treasure. So I walked on the land and said, I don't even want to look at the house. This is the place.
this
right
is it.
on, right
Yeah.
on.
Perfect.
And then of
It's
course we have Bev over there in Oregon. So we're really excited. We had Brad, who was going to come too, who's had some situations with his family, but Gary says he knows how to more than talk.
Yep.
So, so if you have questions, just put them on the comment section, and we'll pass it on to Gary. Otherwise, we're just going to let him start talking away and take it away, Gary.
okay. Well, welcome everyone. This is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. Um, I wanted to just begin to just say that, of course, our kids are our next generational influence on our culture, on our society, on how our world will operate, the resourcing of which is of vital importance to me. And kids right now are experiencing more stress factors, not only just COVID-19 and the isolationism of it all, but more stress factors than ever before. In any generation, they have never had a piece of gossip. Generally, it would go like between 5 or 6, maybe 10 friends. But a piece of gossip now will go to thousands of people, which means that the stress factors and the peer group factors on teenagers is so huge and so overwhelming that it's something that boggles my mind. Coupled with the isolationism that we're all experiencing due to COVID-19, it robbed us of a set of very specific hormones. And I just want to speak just a moment about that because there is so much impact on the body when we are deprived of touch and sort of that comforting feeling that families can give, but not always, and also with friends and loved ones. And first we have, like the oxytocin hormone, which is sort of like the cuddle hormone, and then the serotonin hormone, which is, of course, our happiness hormone, and then the dopamine, which is our kind of feel-good hormone, all comes from touch. So I just want to give a shout out to what Bev and Paul are doing, because the BioTouch actually begins to fill those particular voids of creating these hormonal responses in the body that we absolutely need to stay out of depression and to stay more uplifted. If we are not experiencing touch, we are going to be deprived of those very, very essential hormones. Now, that said, I work and have worked a lot with kids who are suicidal, mainly teenagers. I get called often to work with one-on-one coaching with teenagers that have lost hope. I've never lost a kid yet. And one of the most important things that I discovered is not so much to talk to kids always about suicide, but it's about talking to kids about the resources that they inherently have within them. We have more neurological connections in our bodies than there are grains of sand on all the beaches on the planet. But very rarely has someone ever rocked up and said, would you like the owner's manual for your mind? Because Buddha said, thought manifests as the word manifests as the deed develops into habit, the habit hardens into character. So watch your words and your thoughts with care and let it spring out of concern for all beings. For as a shadow follows the body, as you think, as you speak, so you become. So we have to begin to start teaching kids the vital information about how to self-lead, how to have mental emotional management skills, how to be able to use language in a way that is empowering rather than disempowering, how to harness the linguistic power, because our words are creative, of how to start creating where they want to go, rather than always being in a narrative about what's happened and about where they are at this moment, which is generally in this isolation kind of depressed state. So we have to give kids a future vision and fill them with the possibilities that they can feel better, they can feel different, they can manage their minds and their emotions far more effectively and self-lead. Secondly, be able to go in and teach them about relationship skills, which is, I think, one of the most important skills to teach teenagers in. Communication strategies. I teach a whole process on authentic conversations, which teaches kids how to begin to have conversations where they're fully heard and they can fully listen. So it's about this maturing process of really opening up the owner's manual for them. Then the next set of skills that I think are vitally important is teaching them how to do critical thinking, to how to think from 6 different perspectives so they learn how to solve problems. So when you place these 3 just core pillars of what I call being more actualized in your life, and you present them to teenagers, they go, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this before. You mean there's actually hope? And I'm like, yes, there's actually hope. I rolled out a whole series of youth leadership trainings through DeSoto School District several years ago. And up to 3 years after that particular set of trainings, I was still getting emails from the kids that participated in those leadership trainings on how their life had continued to change and shift and improve based upon what they had learned. Kids said every kid in the school should know this stuff, because if we knew this stuff, there would be far less suicide, far less suffering, and kids would finally be resourced. So these are things that I think are vitally important, that children and teenagers get to start getting skills. They have to be trained in emotional intelligence. They have to be trained in self-leadership, problem solving, and relationship skills. A lot of the work I've done with kids is, how do I talk to my parents? And I would be like, okay, well, that's a twofold path. One is you give them a complete strategy for being able to speak to their parents. Secondly, you speak to their parents about how to speak to them, because there was an evolutionary process. Just like teenagers go through this cycle of going through puberty and getting their stronger sense of their identity, and they're evolving in this next cycle of their of course, self-growth. Parents have to shift their parenting style from directionalized parenting to the parent as coach, so that the parent begins to ask questions, actually critical.
Uh-oh.
I think 14, because it's just lowering the age all the time because kids are maturing so quickly, and allowing them to begin to start having this really powerful sense of self. And then when parents start asking them these type of questions, letting the child think through the answer to that, then the child starts to strengthen their character more. A lot of where children begin to start going into these deep depressions is they don't know who they are. They have a really weak sense of self. They look outside themselves through the social media accounts and who's giving me likes and who's doing this. And the bottom line is they have to create this core of their own values, have skills to actually increase positive beliefs rather than limiting beliefs. And they have to be able to manage their emotional states and know how their nervous system and the biology of their emotions actually work. You start educating them in this information, and they begin to blossom automatically. When I first went in to teach this, I was teaching like 14 to like 17-year-old kids. And one of the teachers says, oh, this is too complicated for them. I will tell you, they took to it like a duck to water. They were like, we are starving for this information. And once they got it, they were like, I can actually be something. I can actually be something more than this sort of depressing thing that I see in front of me, because no one gives them hope about what they actually can do. They are amazing, remarkable people waiting to just be fed some data around how to empower themselves. So I don't go in and talk about suicide, although suicide is epidemic right now. And I really want to send out just a word to every parent to be very, very alert, because suicide can happen during the day, during the morning, during the afternoon, during the evening. Sometimes there's absolutely no warning. Sometimes there's a trigger that happens outside of the home that causes them to lose the plot. And one of the biggest problems is that kids will have magical thinking really about their mortality. And they will think, they don't necessarily understand that this is a finality. Brad has quite a tragic story that I'm sure he would have shared. I don't think he would mind me sharing it. But his 14-year-old boy, based upon just, he broke his Xbox, I think it was, or PlayStation, and they got him a new one, and somehow he had broke that one again, the new one again, and he said nothing to anybody, but he went upstairs and hung himself in his closet. And his 14-year-old boy died, which just about shattered Brad's life. Very tragic. I'm doing some work with a nonprofit he set up called Hayden's Corner, and we are now doing we're doing Facebook Lives now just around this topic, and then going on we'll be doing webinars as well. But this becomes really a valuable place to start looking, because parents, it can happen at any time, not to make you paranoid, but to make you aware, and resource your kids with the skills and tools, and most importantly, touch them, love them, make psychological safety happen within your home. Now, I'm just going to pivot just a little bit to that because I think it's vitally important, is that the conversation is the relationship. So if in isolation, the family is not cohesive, or you're not having family conversations, it can become then so much more isolating when the kid is feeling like, I don't have my friends outside and I don't feel emotionally safe in my own home. That could be because of arguments between the mother and the father, sibling arguments, criticism, blame, verbal attacks. All that will break down the psychological safety where a child will not talk to you. And if that becomes the culture of the family, that, in my opinion, is one of the more triggering aspects of how children will finally go to the place of, I don't want to be here anymore. So we as parents have to really start looking at ourselves, at our relationship with our husband or our wife, and start looking at what are we not doing that we could do to begin to stop whatever sort of toxic in communication and conversations that have been established as a norm in our home. How can we begin to start turning that around to something that is about love, it is about honesty, it is about transparency, vulnerability, and authenticity. When a child starts experiencing, because kids model their parents, when a child starts experiencing that the parent has the capacity to change, or the parent has the capacity to evolve, they actually start to get more hopeful. So this is a place for everyone to be alert to. The war without will never cease till the war within ceases. The damage that we've, none of us are perfect by any means, and we all do errors for sure. But now it's about bringing alertness to this aspect of who we are. If I could say there was a silver lining to COVID, it is about going deeper inside yourself, because we are forced to stop the externalization of our attention and our focus outside, and we're forced to look more inside. This is what this time is doing for us. I have a Native American friend here in Santa Fe, and he said, this is very much like we are entering a vision quest stage where we have to sit quietly with ourselves and analyze, who am I? What do I want for this next cycle of my life? How are my relationships? And what part do I play in the healing of them? And what part do I need to take responsibility for so that I can begin this healing journey with my partner and create a healthier, more vital environment for my children to have the conversations, to have that connection, because without the conversation, you do not have a connection. So always and forevermore, this is coming back to the fact that relationships are kind of everything. And if we are not getting that established with our kids, the greater isolation, not only from friends and family, but especially within the home where they ought to be getting that connection. And if they're not getting it, it becomes doubly difficult for them. This is where I think BioTouch ties so brilliantly into this process that I'm speaking about, because if we can couple BioTouch with what I call family truth circles, I've done a lot of work with Native American elders, and part of it was, a truth circle or a talking stick, where I have the family create a object, a stick wrapped in leather or cloth or yarn, and every family member decorates it and adds part of themselves to that. And then you sit and you have a circle. And once the talking stick comes to you, your obligation at that time is to be transparent, to be honest, and to tell your truth, free of criticism, free of retribution, free of punishment, but to be able to tell your truth. And the only thing anybody else can say in that circle is, thank you for honoring me with what's true for you today. And if the whole family could have this level of safety, speak in an authentic way to each other, vulnerable and transparent. Parents especially need to model that. So show their kids that they're capable of admitting their mistakes, so that the kid can finally start growing back into respect for what they observe the parents not doing congruently. And then the child begins to start feeling more emotionally safe. That, coupled with a BioTouch, would be absolutely transformative.
Okay, everybody, we're back. We're going to try this. We had a huge crash. I can't believe Gary.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry that everybody missed whatever part of his presentation that happened at the crash. At some point he asked me if I had any questions. I was totally speechless, because he's, as I said to him, "Oh, Gary, you're talking our language." It's
Yep.
What an amazing opportunity. We're gonna work with this man.
We are, because it was all about BioTouch. I mean, when you talk about these children and adolescents, they don't know who they are. Self-awareness.
Gosh.
Touch fills the void. The whole talking circle. And I worked at Amity once, a drug rehab community. We worked BioTouch in the family circles. And I'll never forget this father and son who for 30 years hadn't talked to each other, were angry, they were on drugs, and they did BioTouch in one of those circles, and they both started bawling.
Oh.
The communication went so deep, they didn't even need words.
Gosh.
So we want to teach you some of those points. We're going to put these together and get it out to people. We're going to get more of Gary on there.
Oh, yes.
That was just too awesome.
I know.
So let's go right into teaching the few sets of points and just a little bit about BioTouch and what it is. So we have that little manual up there, Bev.
Oh, are you sharing it?
Yes. What is BioTouch?
Okay,
Quickly go through those bullets. Oh, the bullets about it's easy to learn?
Yeah. Okay. Are you sharing it on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see it.
I know you can't. It's on my screen.
Great.
We're just
talking.
I
need to get my.
I'll just tell it what you.
Manual?
No, I'll just tell you. Easy to learn.
It is easy to learn. Okay. And here's the good news about that. Every single person can learn BioTouch and be totally effective from the very beginning. Boy, what else can you say about that?
Yeah, that's why
It's
it'll work
perfect.
perfect in those families. And then next one, it's a complement to any healthcare program.
Oh, yes. Boy, isn't it ever? And, we're using words like integrative and holistic, and because BioTouch complementary, because BioTouch fits with everything. It's so non-invasive. It just works its way into everything and just makes it better. It just makes it better.
And
Yeah.
and there's no levels of ability.
Nope. That's the wow. Can you imagine that? I mean, I could teach that the next set to a 5-year-old, and that little baby could turn around and do it on grandma. I mean, it's perfect. It's wonderful.
And that's a lot about what Gary was talking about. These things that, the family can just do it. There's no levels. They don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Just incredible. And because as the next bullet, it requires no special preparation, belief, or state of mind.
Boy, I tell you, that's what makes BioTouch so accessible. All of those bullets, accessible to everyone. Anyone who, and this is a human condition, it really is, to love and care for another person. That's our true nature. This is what BioTouch is here to give us, this gift, so that we can put that into action. So no belief system. You don't have to prepare. You don't have to ruffle, or it's just, you just step up and you just touch another person in love. That's it.
Okay. Let's teach it, huh?
Okay. Okay, so we're going to teach the greeting. And the greeting is always performed before we do anything else with a recipient. The first thing we want to do is always wash our hands. Always wash our hands. And then let me just say, this is the only set that you're going to be using one hand, and you're going to be using a particular hand, which is going to be your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you want to do the whole greeting with your right hand. If you're left-handed, both points with your left hand. And so you simply take these first two fingers, and we're always going to touch very lightly on those points and hold 6 to 8 seconds. So point number 1, that fleshy area just below the breastbone or the sternum, that is point 1. And you're going to lightly hold for 6 to 8 seconds right on that point. That's point 1. Point 2 is on the back. It is, if you can bend your head forward, that big bone at the base of the neck pops out. Go to that big bone, and you're going to be 1 to 1.5 inches to the left of that big bone, and that is point 2. And again, you hold that 6 to 8 seconds, lightly. Yep. Oh, you're going to show them the video.
The greeting is always performed at the beginning of each session.
Wonderful.
It's the only set that uses one hand, and the only set that indicates which hand to use. The greeting is performed with the dominant hand. If you are right-handed, use your right hand. If you are left-handed, use your left hand. The greeting is made by touching at point 1, which is in the fleshy area just below the bottom of the breastbone or sternum. Hold this point for 6 to 8 seconds. Then, with the same two fingers, touch point 2 on the back. To find point 2, look for the big bone at the base of the neck. From here, move 1 to 1.5 inches to the left. This is point 2. Hold this point for 6 to 8 seconds. More than one associate may work with a recipient provided that all of the associates perform the greeting. If the associate or the recipient leaves the session, or if someone who hasn't done the greeting touches either the recipient or the associate, the greeting must be reestablished. Then the session may proceed from where it was interrupted.
There you go.
Okay, well, now that I know you're showing the video, I forgot about that. I don't have to be so. So the next, what's the next set, Paul?
Let's go with the head.
The headset. So Gary was talking about depression in these teenagers, the isolation, and all of those things, the chemical and hormonal imbalances. And this is why the headset is really, really important to work with in this condition.
The headset can be used to address conditions related to the brain. There are 4 steps in this set. In step 1, use through fire to touch points A and A. Point A on the back of the head is in the center of the neck at the base of the skull. Point A on the front of the head is at the center of the forehead where the forehead begins to curve to the crown. Step 2 is performed in crossfire with the fingers of each hand touching on opposite sides of the head. Hold at X, which is in the indentation beside the neck muscle at the base of the skull. It is the same as point 1 of the back set. On the opposite side of the head, touch points 1 through 5. Points 1, 2, and 3 are on the ridge line formed where the skull curves up toward the crown. Point 1 is above the outside corner of the eye on the ridge. Point 2 is above the front of the ear on the ridge. Point 3 is above the back of the ear on the ridge. To locate point 4, move down the head toward the base of the skull to a horizontal indentation approximately 1/3 of the way down from the top of the ear and 1 to 1.5 inches behind the back edge of the ear. Point 5 is opposite hold point X at the base of the skull. Point 5 now becomes the new hold point as points 1 through 5 are touched on the opposite side of the head. In crossfire, touch point 1 above the outside corner of the eye on the ridge, point 2 above the front of the ear on the ridge, point 3 is above the back of the ear on the ridge, point 4 is a horizontal indentation approximately 1/3 of the way down from the top of the ear and 1 to 1.5 inches behind the back edge of the ear. And point 5 is opposite hold point X at the base of the skull. Step 3 is performed in matching fire, touching points 1 and 1, two and 2, three and 3, four and 4, five and 5. Finally, in step 4, place the open palms of both hands on the head covering points 1 through 3. Be careful, don't let your hands touch each other.
There you go.
There you go. Very, very effective. Yep. So the last set we're going to share is the stress and anxiety.
Yeah, let me get it here. And showing the pages. There you go.
Okay. And, you know, based on everything that we were told tonight, this is a really, really important set because the stress and anxiety is the basis of most everything that begins to happen. And let's not forget, BioTouch, whatever set you're doing, always gives this sense of being cared for. So that is a big one. That's one of the things that BioTouch don't even need to try. Just do BioTouch and you're going to get that effect for the recipient.
The stress set may be used to address any manifestation of physical, emotional, or mental stress, as well as anxiety and shingles. Hold at X, which is in the fleshy area just below the bottom of the breastbone. It is the same as greeting point 1. Then with the other hand touch points 1 and 2, which are the same points as in the heart set. These points are found by imagining a line running from the notch at the top of the breastbone to a place on the left breast where the nipple would be on a youth. Divide this imaginary line into thirds. Point 1 is at the top of the first third. Point 2 is at the top of the second third. These points may be touched repeatedly, and remember to touch each point for at least 6 to 8 seconds.
There you go.
Yep. Some basic sets.
Very simple, folks. Just, I'm just so jazzed today hearing Gary, knowing BioTouch, knowing our whole goal is to get this into families. This is a perfect time on the planet to do that.
Yep.
If you missed those points, you can get the workbook yourself, and it has links to those videos just for this childhood and adolescent isolation. And for a month, we'll have that workbook up there. It'll be justtouch.com/workbook. And that will have the points that we just shared here to work with childhood and adolescent. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Adolescent isolation.
Oh, wow.
Boy, this has been one hell of an evening.
I'm telling you, it's very interesting.
It is. Yep. I mean, we've had one problem after another, but we've done it. We'll piece it all together. We'll get this out in an email to folks.
Yep.
Good job, Bev, in picking up in the slack here. And God, we really want to thank Gary.
My goodness.
You can go to his website too. He's actually called the People Mechanic.
Yep.
And you can go to GaryDeRodriguez.net. Or just look up the People Mechanic and you'll get to his website. He's doing some awesome work. And we are thrilled to have hooked up with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to thank you for joining us tonight. And we'll see you next month. Next month is breast cancer. So join us next month. And if you want, join us Monday. Mondays with Bev and Paul at 10 a.m. Tucson time. There we go.
Bye, everybody. See you, Bev.
See you, Paul. Bye, everybody.